Bitching about wide receiver is one of the dumbest arguments I've heard.
A couple of days ago, the Buffalo Bills fired head coach Sean McDermott and promoted Brandon Beane to president of football operations. Now, when I first heard this news, I thought it was blackmail. All right, I thought Brandon Beane might have had Terry Pegula's nudes on his phone. And considering the fact that Brandon Cooks looked like the best wide receiver on your roster, this was a very questionable move. And after watching through what I believe is the most embarrassing press conference I've ever seen, I now know why the Buffalo Bills are by far the most dysfunctional franchise in the NFL. Over the past couple of years, Bills fans have been reasoning their playoff collapses with the fact that Patrick Mahomes is just in the way. Even the NFL changed the overtime rules because of how that Josh Allen-Patrick Mahomes overtime game played out. But then this year, Mahomes is not in the playoffs. So everybody's thinking to themselves, it's Josh Allen's here. You know, this is it. The NFL's thinking to themselves, we got our next Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift and Josh Allen and Haley Steinfeld. We're ready to go. But then the Bills proceed to lose due to a controversial call. But after a playoff loss, reports came out that head coach Sean McDermott was reportedly upset at Bills GM Brandon Beane and owner Terry Pegula with criticism of the roster, specifically the wide receiver group, saying that he had some questions about how much talent the Bills actually had. And right after this report comes out, the Bills fire Sean McDermott. All right, he gets let go. He's been relieved of his duties as head coach. Sean has done an admirable job. Now, did Sean McDermott deserve to get fired? That's for you to decide, okay? I personally didn't think he was the head coach to get them to the Super Bowl. But at the end of the day, he revived the Bills franchise. He bought them their first playoff win in forever. But he's also hilarious, okay? He's subtle. He decided to take some slight jabs at general manager Brandon Beane by mentioning Jacoby Myers, who was a wide receiver candidate at the trade deadline that the Jaguars ultimately picked up.
I thought one of the moves that's made a difference for them offensively is adding Jacoby Myers. Good pickup for him. Probably a guy that's quite honestly been undervalued in his career, but going against him in New England, a ton of respect for his game.
But now we fast forward to present day. All right, this morning I wake up, ate some dumplings, did a calm little scroll on YouTube, and this video came up. Terry Pegula and Brandon Beane discussed the future of the Bills organization, and I can confidently say after watching through all 53 minutes of this interview, this is the dumbest press conference I've ever seen in my life. First, we have Terry Pegula, the owner of the team, breaking down the process of firing Sean McDermott.
My decision to bring in a new coach was based on the results of our game in Denver. I walked over to Josh. He didn't even acknowledge I was there. First thing I said to him, I said, that was a catch. We all know what I'm talking about. He had given everything he had to try to win that game. And looking around, so did all the other players on the team.
The team is, womp womp, all sad and teary. They just lost in overtime again. Pegula states in his press conference that he fired Sean McDermott because of the loss in Denver. After that claim, he decided to ask a question to the reporter.
Does anyone know what the numbers 523, 2226 represent? No? That's our seeding over the last 7 years in the playoffs. 5, 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, 6. An organization doesn't carry that kind of record without being a great organization, without having great players.
He also has 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 Super Bowls with Josh Allen.
You don't get in the playoffs 7 straight years. You don't get there without having talent and a great organization, and Brandon and his staff have brought in players that, look at the injuries we had this year. We're down guys on the practice squad contributing in big games. You don't do that without talent in the front office.
You don't get in the playoffs 7 straight years without talent and great organization. Well, you also don't get in without great coaching. Matter of fact, he didn't mention anything about the coaching job in that self-given blowjob right there. Even when guys were getting promoted off the practice squad, when guys were getting injured, all front office and organization. But thank God a reporter pressed him about it later on in the press conference.
You said it was a reflection of the roster that they had to play so many guys deep down the depth chart because of injuries. But they kept winning football games, so why was that also not a positive reflection on Sean McDermott's coaching?
Again, I go back to 5-2-3, 2-2-2-6. Great roster, good coaching. No Super Bowl appearance. And I can't...
It's not all Sean McDermott's fault! Brandon Beane has been abysmal as a general manager. Just look at his prodigy, Joe Shane. Like, the fact that he believes roster construction has no issue to this whatsoever is actually just staggering. Since drafting Josh Allen in 2018, the Bills have drafted 56 players. 2 of them 2 have made Pro Bowls. One of the biggest issues that Josh Allen and the Bills have had since Brandon Beane became GM was getting a #1 receiver. And while it's true that they had Stephon Diggs for a number of years where the Bills looked like one of the best offenses in the NFL, the last 2 years he's gotten a lot of criticism for the wide receiver room that he's put together surrounding Josh Allen, okay? When Brandon Cooks, guy that's been around since the 2014 NFL Draft, 12 years in the league, looks like your best wide receiver in the biggest game of your life, and Keon Coleman, aka Cookies, is your highest wide receiver draft pick, there's obviously going to be a lot of pushback on the general manager for putting together this absolute terrorism group of receivers, all right? It's like they have auditions, tryouts for receivers every month. And at one point, Brandon Beane, he got tired of the criticism because when a local Buffalo radio show was stating the obvious, all right, complaining about the receiver room, Brandon Beane decided to tune in.
I was just listening to the last few minutes of your show before I came on, waiting on here.
All right.
Sounds like 2018 all over with you guys.
Well, how so?
Well, you guys were bitching in 2018 about Josh Allen. You guys wanted Josh Rosen, and now you guys are bitching that we don't have a receiver. I don't get it. Like, we just scored. Hold on, let me talk. We just scored 30 points in a row for 8 straight games. A year ago, I get you guys asking why we didn't have receivers, but I don't understand it now. You just saw us lead the league in points when you add all the postseason. No one scored more points than the Buffalo Bills, including the Super Bowl champions. So you just saw us do it without Stephon Diggs, same group. How is this group not better than last year's group? Our job is to score points and win games. Where do we need to get better? Defense. We did that. So I get it. You got to have a show. You got to have something to bitch about. But bitching about wide receiver is one of the dumbest arguments I've heard.
Bitching about the wide receivers is one of the dumbest arguments that I've heard. This guy got a promotion. President of Football Operations. Oh, this is hilarious because if we go back to this press conference, Brandon Beane was asked about that exact confrontation that he made on the radio show.
A big chunk of the fan base very frustrated with you specifically dating back to that interview that you did on WGR 550. Thought it was very condescending, and I think that a lot of people have come out frustrated with you, particularly that you're still here and Sean isn't. I think a lot of it leads back to that. Do you regret that, and do you think in hindsight, maybe not only the host, but the fan base is kind of right about that assumption about the position?
It's a long, probably, answer for you, Matt. I'm a passionate person. I don't think that's new on anybody. And if you remember, going, man, we had, the #2 scoring offense. Even when I did that interview, I knew we were adding Elijah Moore later that day. And so it just...
Look, I don't watch a lot of Brandon Beane press conferences, okay? I'm not a Buffalo Bills fan. So this is one of my first times listening to him speak. And I can confidently say that after listening to him talk, this guy's a dumbass. Sounds like from his answer that he doesn't think he did anything wrong, okay? He had this #2 scoring offense, whatever those numbers mean, and a wide receiver group coming into the year with Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and Curtis Samuel. That was good enough. Just absolute insanity that this guy got a promotion. But then we get to the juiciest part of the press conference.
The wide receiver position has been an issue with this team, and a lot of people out there believe you have failed in the free agent market, and then obviously with the Keon Coleman signing, which hasn't worked out. How do you answer the fact that you have not given Josh a good enough wide receiver room thus far?
Yeah, I mean...
Can I interrupt? I'll address the Keon situation. The coaching staff pushed to draft Keon. I'm not saying Brandon wouldn't have drafted him, but he wasn't his next choice.
Terry Pagula interrupts the question, all right, tells everybody to shut up, and states that it was the coaching staff's decision to draft Keon Coleman. First of all, Keon Coleman, he's still on the team. Imagine being a player of the team and listening to your owner saying this about you at a press conference. He's probably on vacation somewhere in Cancun, just enjoying his day off, all you can drink pina coladas. And he has to listen to his own owner treat him like a mistake. Treat him like he was supposed to be aborted. But he basically accuses Sean McDermott of drafting Keon Coleman, which is interesting because proof has come out on Twitter that doesn't suggest that this was the case.
When I went to bed that night, I was like, it's Keon unless someone just blows us away. We didn't feel anything was attractive enough for us to pass up on Keon.
He said, when I went to bed, I was sleeping thinking about Keon.
Barring someone offering us something stupid, we'll take Keon Coleman there.
So there's a bunch of finger pointing going on, all right? Once again, promoted to president of football operations right there. I don't even know how to explain this. It seems like Brandon Beane gaslit and manipulated the owner into thinking that Sean McDermott was the one who actually wanted to pick Keon Coleman. Because later on in the press conference, Brandon Beane, the general manager, clearly contradicts what Terry Pagula just said.
No, he was my pick. I made the pick. Terry's point was that we might have had it in a different order of personnel versus coaching.
He's stuttering. He's sweating.
What I was trying to show with Keon was we collaborate. There's different names available at every draft pick that we could have selected.
Whoa, Terry, hold on. You just said that the coaching staff pushed to take Keon Coleman.
The coaching staff pushed to draft Keon.
But then they were asked about why they believe the Bills lost the game against the Broncos.
I mean, Jay.
A bad call.
Yeah, I mean, Jay, I would say we went to Jack.
He looks so confused. Now, whether you want to argue this was a catch or not, I actually personally believe it is a catch. I think he had possession of the ball there and his knee was down. Then he was touched down by contact, but the league argues that the ball was being bobbled. He never had possession coming down, blah, 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 whatever. It was interception. At the end of the day, the Bills had 5 turnovers in that game, okay? If you have 5 turnovers, you deserve to lose. Because another mishap that Brandon Beane made during the season was when he picked up Darius Slay off of waiver. This was interesting because they released their own cornerback, Jamarcus Ingram, who ended up being picked up by Houston. And you could tell Brandon Beane was rubbing his hands over this move, all right? He just kicked his own cornerback to the curb, laughing his ass off, getting new cornerback depth, a new starter. But on the same day, Darius Slay was contemplating retirement, and he wouldn't report to the Bills after the waiver claim because Darius Slay, who was technically on the Bills roster, was in Philadelphia during the Bills playoff game against the Jaguars to watch his own Eagles play against the Niners. And this was not like a complete surprise. This was not a blindsided move because Slay has publicly said that he aimed to only play one more season in either Philadelphia or Detroit. So I don't know why Brandon Beane picked him up. But he was also asked about this in this historic press conference.
Now, when we claimed Darius Slay, we had no idea that he had the intent to only play for one team. And when the way the rules work, listen, I would have loved when I found that out to push him back and say, all right, we're unaware of that.
This guy's so ass, man. After this press conference, you can safely assume everybody is on the hot seat. But Terry Pegula seems to believe that there's no pressure at all.
Is it Super Bowl or bust? Because in 2026,
No, we can't say that to somebody coming in. We're making a change, and it's do your best job.
So apparently it's not Super Bowl or bust in Buffalo, it's do your best job. Once again, I'm just astounded that Brandon Beane got a promotion, all right? The Bills apparently offered the Dolphins a first-round pick as a part of a package for Jalen Waddle during the season. Apparently the Dolphins said no because they wanted the pick to be this year's pick. I don't know if I really believe in this rumor or not. If this is true, this is outrageous, but I also don't think the Dolphins would trade Jalen Waddle within the division, but it's also the Dolphins. And they might get an upgrade at head coach. I think Brian Dable is a better head coach than Sean McDermott. This franchise is much more dysfunctional than I thought it was, all right? Possibly the most dysfunctional one with a franchise quarterback. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about the Buffalo Bills. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next video.